Hands down, the most frequently asked questions that we get asked are those surrounding OAS, or Old Age Security, and CPP, Canada Pension Plan, as of course for a Canadian living abroad. One of our most viewed videos talks in some very general terms about OAS, and this makes sense as those thinking about moving abroad or those currently abroad, there simply isn't a lot of information out there. And while I can offer some very general info, it's times like this that we like to turn to the experts on everything money and expat, Trowbridge Professional Corp. We are grateful to have joining us once again Ernie Negratha, Managing Director, Global Mobility Services with Trowbridge. Ernie, welcome.
Thanks for having me, Alan.
Ernie, for this video, let's talk about OAS, the Old Age Security, and then next week we'll have you back and ask the same questions about CPP.
That sounds good.
Great. So how can one apply for OAS as an expat?
Excellent question. One that comes up for us all the time as well. The first item is that the individual must be 65 years or older, just generally. So must hit that age requirement if they're living abroad and applying for the OAS. There's also some legal requirements. So you must be a Canadian citizen or a legal resident of Canada on the day before you left Canada. So if you're only thinking about becoming a legal resident, you do have to ensure that you're a resident before you departed Canada. And the last one is the most important one. It's what we call the residency requirement. So you must have resided in Canada for at least 20 years since the age of 18. Now that's very different than an individual that's a resident of Canada, where you have to reside in Canada for at least 10 years since the age of 18. So something to keep in mind if you're applying as a non-resident.
Okay. So what about someone who's currently receiving OAS that's in Canada and they're moving abroad? Can they transfer that OAS to the new location?
Common question as well. Should your residency status change? So as you just described, let's say you're a resident and you then become a non-resident of Canada, and the individual will be away for at least 6 months, which makes sense because if an individual is becoming a non-resident, it's really looking at whether they're going to be gone for the foreseeable future. And if the individual does not meet the requirements for an individual living outside of Canada that I just mentioned, then they would not be eligible to receive the OAS income after 6 months. And so what that really means then is the rules I just went through a moment ago, you would have to have been living outside of Canada for 20 years you would have to have been living in Canada for 20 years since the age of 18 in order for you to continue to receive the OAS benefits as a non-resident.
Okay. And what about tax implications? So if I'm receiving OAS, I'm living in the US or in somewhere in Europe, what are those tax implications that I'm responsible for receiving OAS?
Okay, so if you're non-resident, you're receiving the benefits. The very first thing you need to make sure you do, before I forget to tell you this, is to inform Service Canada. Just because Service Canada and the Canada Revenue Agency don't always communicate with each other on a timely basis. So once you inform Service Canada, they're going to request from you to find out, well, where do you reside? Under most circumstances, there's a 25% non-resident withholding tax for a non-resident receiving OAS benefits. So let's say, for example, you get $100, the government is going to keep $25, you're going to get $75, and you'll be issued an NR4 slip. If you're in a treaty country, in some circumstances, that 25% could be reduced under the treaty. In some cases, not all, there may be a requirement to file a form called a T1136. So that's something you should consult with us or a tax advisor on, just to determine whether you do need to file that form, because in some cases there could be an additional tax if you earn more than a threshold level of income. It's approximately $79,000. And so we can get into those details, if individuals have those issues that do come up and they think they might need to file that form.
Perfect. And we've heard, or people have asked us anyway, whether or not there's been any updates to the OAS that might affect expats. Are you aware of any?
Not currently. So luckily in the last year, there have not been any updates, but if there are any changes, Trowbridge does a regular news bulletin. And so we'll be sure to keep that current on our website if there's any changes to the OAS rules.
Great. Ernie, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks a lot, Alan.
And thank you for joining us. And if you have any specific questions about tax-related issues, anything to do with Canada and another country abroad, Trowbridge is the perfect place to go to. Please reach out to them. They'd be more than happy to help out. Thanks for watching.